this book. Oh my god. This book. Hi readers, welcome back to Plots and Reviews. I am Bree, and today is book club backlog. So let me introduce you to the book that we'll be looking at today. It's called The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. It should probably be renamed Boredom Everlasting. You'll understand why. Let's get into the story, shall we? The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is written by V.E Schwartz.
Schwartz.
In the book, we are following the life of one Addie LaRue. Adeline. Let me get her name. Adeline. Her name is Adeline. Anyway, it really doesn't matter because she is invisible. So we meet Adeline, also known as Addie LaRue, when she is about seven, and we're told that she's this clever, spirited little child that has always been very curious about things. She lives in this village in the middle of nowhere in France, and it's like 1700s. Okay, it's 1698 in some random village in the middle of nowhere in France, right? And this little Addie, she lives with her family, and they live in this little village that she has never left. Her father is a woodworker who's very talented. Her mom is a stay-at-home mom, and she takes care of the family and the house and so on. And everyone in the village pretty much knows each other, and they have expectations of the slightly very poor in 1698, middle of nowhere, France village. She has been always curious and very close to her father. And she has observed in the village that everyone seems to want to settle into the village and not have anything different happening with their lives. And as she grows, she begins to realize that this is not what she wants, right? So when she is 9, I believe, her father takes her for the first time out of the village, and she goes with him to a town where he sells his wooden pieces and his bowls and spoons and all of the little trinkets that he creates, hand carves in wood, you know.
Handmade. Premium. Yes.
So it's her first time out of the village. She enjoys it very much. She thinks it's beautiful. It's amazing. Imagine a place where you don't know everyone, you know, all of these new faces, always something new. And every single year that he would go, he would take her from the age of 9. When she was 12, suddenly she couldn't go anymore. And
Her mom was like, you need to learn to stay home and learn to be a proper lady, be a proper girl. And so you can't go with your father, because apparently going with your father just makes sure that you're not a proper girl, and so you can't go.
So she is, of course, is absolutely devastated. She's like, I hate you, Mom. And then she runs away in a little corner. But she continues to investigate her surroundings, and she has a neighbor named Estelle. Now, Estelle is treated as a little rejected old lady that, like, is probably one of those, like, witchy old ladies. But you know those old ladies that you're really supposed to be listening to? The ones that say,
There is a weird energy in the air. There is a problem coming, and you should think, let me burn some incense and clear this air so that, I don't get possessed.
So Estelle, she begins telling Addie a little about her religion, right? At the time, apparently, Catholicism was making its way through the land, and the families in the village were becoming Christians, right? They were becoming Catholics, let's say. So they were beginning to pray. You had the churches and so on going up. But Estelle was still of the old religions, right? She still believed in the old religions, and the old gods. So she would always tell her that,
listen, you need to be careful with them, and you should never, ever, 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 ever call on the dark gods.
Let's take a moment to pause here and reflect on how whenever something is negative or supposedly bad, it's like dark. Why is that? Anyway, moving along with the story. So don't call on the dark gods. So naturally, what she will call on the dark gods, people, because everything is very straightforward here. So
She's 12. She's like, oh, okay, cool. I will call on the dark gods. Thank you, Estelle. And Estelle's like, yes. Blah, 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 blah. Giving her more wisdom, telling her about the water gods, the ones in the land, the ones in the fields, the ones of air, which ones are tricky, which ones are more likely to listen to you, which one can give you a better harvest. And so she's gaining all of this knowledge from the age of 12. I'm emphasizing this because later on it becomes important.
she has gained all the knowledge. And between the ages of 12 and about, we're going to go until she's like 16, 17. She's been observing again what's happening in the village, specifically with young girls. And young girls have to marry young. She had a friend named Isabel who always seemed very content to remain in the village. She never wanted to leave. I don't think she ever left. And Isabel, she got married pretty young when she was 16, and Addie is like 17, 18. Isabel already had like a child, and she seemed happy because she had her family that she had always wanted. But then Addie also comments that she looks tired and, you know, she doesn't have energy to do certain things anymore. And she doesn't want that for her life. So what she has been doing is praying to the gods. Whenever a random man pops up and he's like, I want to marry you. She's like,
Oh, gods of water. Oh, gods of land. Please protect me from this male. I do not want to get married.
and something would happen. So the first guy, he ended up falling for Isabel instead. There was this other guy who he didn't stop liking her, but he died. So things have been working out for her. Now, when she hits 23, they stop. And there is this guy that pops up with his wife and children, 3 children, I think. The wife dies, and the man is like, listen,
I need another wife. I need someone to take care of these children because I do not have the patience to deal with these little creatures screaming in my ears all the time. Let me find a random woman who will most likely want to do it for me so that I could give her a house.
so who does he look at? Addie, because now she's mad old at the age of 23. He's like, this old woman will be it. She will really want to come and take care of my children and my household. But Addie was like, no, I don't. Her family naturally is like, yes, you have to, because we don't want to take care of you forever. They're not really saying this, but it's the 1700s, people. They don't have money to keep taking care of this old woman at 23. So she runs away. Now, when she runs away, she deceives her parents. Estelle realizes that, you know, she's probably going to run, and creates a diversion by distracting her father for her to run. So she runs away, and she ends up in the forest. And as she's running, she's praying. So she's praying to the water god, she's praying to the land god, she's praying. And apparently nothing is happening to her because she can still hear the village people screaming her name and looking for her. Now she prays, she closes her eyes, she's kneeling, she's praying. And of course, darkness begins to descend. While she prays, no one is answering. So she's like, oh, finally she hears a voice that's like, yes, how may I help you? Basically, he didn't say that, but yes, how may I help you? So she looks around, she's like, oh my gosh. And then she realized it was dark. And then he pops up and she's like, oh, why haven't you guys been answering? And he's like, I don't have any, I don't need to answer you. And she's like, he's like, yeah, you want something?
She's like, yes, I want to be free. I want to be free. I don't want to belong to anyone.
Detail. All those someone really wanted was not to get married, right? Anyway.
I want to be free. I don't want to belong to anyone. And I want to escape this life that I'm living now.
So he's like, okay, what are you willing to give? So she had this ring that her father had given her at birth, right? That he had made, hand-carved. And she gives it to him. She's like, here. Because all the other gods, those things they would accept. Then he looks at it and he destroys it. He's like, I don't deal with trinkets. And of course, she's heartbroken and devastated.
Because she's like, oh my God, my father gave me that ring. I can't believe you won't accept it. So she's like, take whatever you want.
People, when is it ever a good idea to tell some random god, take whatever you want? When in the history of existence has that ever been a good idea? Never. So she says that, and he's like, so what exactly is it that you want? So she repeats herself, and then he's like, yeah, but so how long? Do you want to live this way? And then she looks around. He's like, no, I'm not doing this. You're not going to be living it forever. Indecisive. And she's
like, okay, fine. Whenever I'm finished with the life, you can take my soul.
Because he said, sorry, when she gave him the trinket and he didn't take it, she's like, what do you deal in? He's like, I deal with souls. So many red flags. Anywho's. He gives her, he's like, okay, he kisses her, gets the blood. It's a pact, it's sealed. She falls asleep. He disappears. When she wakes up, the place has gone quiet and it's darker, like it's morning, afternoonish time. And she begins walking back to her village, trying to figure out what's happening. Why has everyone given up on finding her? And she walks to her house and she goes in, right? She's looking for her parents. She's like, Mom, but she sees like her mom, like perfectly fine. And when she approaches her mom is like,
who are you? And she's like, I'm your daughter. And then the mother is like, you're some creature. You're some spirit. We don't have a daughter. I don't have a daughter. So the father comes in and she's like, Dad, but I am your daughter. And they're like, we don't have a daughter. We don't have one.
So she runs out and she comes back in. When she comes back in, she realizes that they don't recognize her, right? So she's like, what the hell is going on? She goes to her father's workstation, like his work hut, and she mistakenly spills some of the dye that he uses, and it ends up falling on her hand and like stains her hand. But she notices that it doesn't stain anything else. It's almost like, although it's been used up, it's disappeared. So she's like, what the fuck? She leaves the house because her parents are like, get out. We don't know you, you evil spirit. And she goes to Estelle. She sees Estelle. She goes to Estelle's house. And Estelle sees her. And Estelle's like, are you a stranger or a spirit? And she's like,
Estelle, you know me. I am Addie. And then Estelle's like, okay, you're a spirit. And then she's like, no, you told me about the gods. And then she gave this whole thing. But I made a mistake. And I called on the gods. And I didn't realize it was so late. So Estelle was like, peace.
And close the door. So she's like, Estelle. So she knocks on the door. Estelle opens back the door. Estelle looks at her in the face. Estelle is like, who are you? And that is basically the cycle. That is where it begins. So we learned that several things. Once the person is out of sight, she is sort of out of mind. So out of sight, out of mind. They don't remember her. She can't leave her mark on anything. So basically she can't like write a letter. She can't say her name. She can't make people remember her in any way, shape, or form. And as far as I'm concerned, it's being faithful, like good for her, like just good. Because who runs around to a random dark god that requires souls as payment and is so vague about what they want? I want to be free. I don't want to be tied down. I don't want to have any responsibilities towards anyone. Well, there you go. There you go. So for the rest of the story. So the story doesn't actually start with her being that young and running around. It starts with her in 2014. And apparently at this point, she's really fed up with her life, but she has learned how to manage it. So she steals clothing because she can't really hang on to money for very long. She finds different places to sleep. She sleeps with... If she has a date and the guy goes home with her in the morning, as soon as he wakes up, he forgets that, he's ever met her. And so she has to recreate this whole story. And with that, she has a special guy named Toby that she's been having a relationship with for quite a few months. But for Toby, it's like every day is a new day. It's like that movie 50 First Dates. Yeah, it's like that. She also has a bathing problem that really bothered me because this lady rolls out of bed, right? In the story, she rolls out of bed from the bed that she's just like slept with this guy, right? Had sex. She rolls out of bed, goes to play the piano. He wakes up. He's like, "What the fuck are you? But you're cute, so I'm not going to say anything." And she's like, "Okay, I have to go." She goes, right, without taking a bath. Walks around the whole of New York randomly looking for random stuff to do. She steals clothing, which she just changes. No mention of her actually stealing underwear. So she steals clothing, puts on new clothing, walks around the whole of New York, blah, blah, blah. Looks around and spends. And then at night, because when she was at the house, he was like, "Oh, well, you can come watch me play tonight." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And it's night and she gets back to the place. and she still hasn't taken a bath. And she's been out the whole day with that whole funk the whole day. That's just nasty, Addie. That is very nasty. So we begin to learn, of course, about what she can do, what she can't do. She speaks a bit about how she manages to sleep in places, because she meets people and she creates a sort of connection with them, so she gets to know when they're there, when they're not. And she basically has to use other people to be able to quote unquote live and survive. Although there's certain things that she doesn't necessarily need, at the end of the day she's still human, so she still likes the idea of comfort and food and nourishment. Now you may be asking, what is the point of this story? If I knew, I would tell you, but I don't. Which is one of the reasons I have been hesitating to finish this book. Like, I got to page 120 and there are like 837 pages of this book. And I am so bored. Anyway, no one remembers
anything about her. As long as she leaves, as soon as she leaves your eyesight, if you would have been talking to her, you forget about her. So she walks into a bookstore one day. And in the bookstore, she is about to steal a book, because remember, she has to steal to live. So she steals her for entertainment. So she's about to steal a book. The book guy comes out and, he's like, oh, can I help you? She's like, no, blah, blah, blah. So she leaves. And when she's about to steal the book, he pops her back. He's like, you have to pay for that. So she's like, I don't have money. And he's like, okay, go ahead.
And she leaves with the book. Now, this guy is apparently interesting because he has a bunch of weird little things that make you want to believe that he also made some ridiculous deal with one of the dark gods, or he is one himself. Now, let's go through him really quickly.
His name is Henry. So apparently Henry is somewhat sad. He doesn't really want to do what he went to university to do. Instead, he's very comfortable working at this random hidden bookstore. And he has this friend that he would go out with occasionally, and they would do a lot of cultural activities. So when he's going out and when they're doing these things, you notice that women tend to be drawn, not only women, but people tend to be drawn to Henry, and they tend to be attracted, very much attracted to him, and instinctively think that he's like a good person and kind and whatever. And he seems to have this ability to look into their eyes and see this little glitter sparkle thing that they have going on in their eyes, and to gauge their interest in him based on that glitter sparkle. Now,
all of this, of course, given the whole story with Addie, makes you believe that maybe Henry is going to play a part in this story, and maybe Henry is also, or he's like a god himself, right, that decided to be human for a while and he's testing out the waters, or he made a deal with one of the gods that went wrong and now he is caught up in this whole story, and there's something that needs to be done there. Or he is just there to like make her give up on life and to make the dark god win that Addie has been trying to run away from for the last 300 years. So there are some theories in my book club. We don't know which one is yet, but should I keep reading? What do you think? Okay, so let me share some of the theories that the book club had so far. Okay, 1, Henry was sent by the dark god to get Addie to give up her life. Henry is the dark god. They're all obsessed with Henry. Anyway, Henry was a god that was given human life. Henry is cursed and living out his curse, or curse or blessed, because it's questionable at this point. Henry asked the dark god to make him desired. She had an affair at some point with the dark god. This is Addie, because there are some parts where she mentions about him not knowing what love is, and she's always talking about something that happened in New Orleans that we still don't know as yet. 7, Addie is currently living out of spite, although frankly, the way that female is living isn't the word. And then we're saying that the ending of the book is going to be sad. I think it's going to be rewarding because it needs to end. And I have a feeling that this book is going to be one of those where after you're done, you're going to be like, this story did not need 600 pages. This story could have been told in 200 pages or less. I'm pretty sure. That's my other theory. I'm pretty sure.
That was it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to like, share, subscribe. And if you have any books that you've heard of randomly, you don't feel like reading, and you'd like me to read and do a review of for you, just let me know in the comments. Have a great day. Take care, peeps.